Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. This week, I'm behind on my reading again. Still trying to get that realistic TBR going, but have I managed it? I don't know. I've made some changes for September, but we're still struggling through August. So I have lots of books to read and it's already Friday. I usually like to start my reading vlogs on Monday, but last week's reading overflowed. Anyway, let me tell you about the books that I have to read. Firstly, I have a book off my physical TBR, so that is Sky Dancer by Witi Ihimaera. Gotta work on my Maori pronunciation. I can't even pronounce English. Anyway, what I know about this is it's some kind of story set in New Zealand. We've got feisty young Skylark O'Shea who is on holiday with her mother at a town on the coast, and soon it becomes clear that it's not all that it seems. That really doesn't tell you anything. There's a threat facing the town and the birds of the forest. I do like that it explicitly is calling out the birds, and it says it's a roller coaster adventure ride with new ways of exploring Maori myth. And I do like stories that include, well, any mythology, but Maori mythology, particularly because that's the country I live in. So I don't know. The font in here is smaller than I was hoping. It's not that long though. 300 pages, 350 pages. So hopefully I will love it, even though I think it's kind of historical fiction fantasy. And unfortunately I've put a lot of historical fiction type stuff on this month's reading plans, and I haven't been enjoying that aspect of the things I'm reading, so a little bit concerned, but we'll see how we go with this. The other thing I'm reading is also a little bit historical, and that is... where's my phone? Honestly, I say that 12 million times a day, but I don't know. But anyway, I'm reading The Pursuit of William Abbey. I think that's her name. I don't have my phone, so I can't check. Anyway, I'm going to be listening to the audiobook of that. It's by Claire North, who also wrote First 15 Lives of Harry August. And my understanding is she tends to write books with quite weird concepts. So in this one, I think there is a man who is cursed, and as long as he keeps running and keeps in front of ghosts or something, then he'll be okay. I don't really know. I have listened to the audiobook, about 5 minutes of it while I got ready to film, and really all I've got so far is this nurse just talking about some basics. I don't even know anything that's going on yet. A couple of people have arrived at the hospital. That's all I know. I'm not even sure who's the main character really, but I assume the William Abbey? I assume the William guy's an important guy. Anyway, what I will note from the 5 minutes that I've listened to already is that the writing style is very similar to the First 15 Lives of Harry August. I do really like the First 15 Lives of Harry August, although I'm not sure if it's the writing style that's my favorite for that book. It's more the loopy time concept that it has. But also the audiobook narrator is the same, so it could just be that it's the same voice, but it's the same author, so you kind of expect similar writing styles, right? Anyway, I don't really know what that one's going to be like, but hopefully I will love it. As well, I have some graphic novels that I kind of need to get to. I've been trying to not plan graphic novels and just fit them in where we go, but that doesn't always work so well when you're getting them all from the library. So I have the second and third and the last volumes of The Dark Crystal, The Power of the Dark Crystal, which is basically after the Dark Crystal movie, which was one of my favorite movies as a kid. The Dark Crystal, The Labyrinth, Neverending Story, The Holy Trinity. After The Dark Crystal, they had planned a sequel movie and they never got to it, but this is a graphic novel version of it. I didn't love the first volume, but I thought it had a lot of potential. And as well, in here there are pages that have Sana Takeda's art, and I really loved Sana Takeda. She's the artist for the Monstrous graphic novels. And the colors in here are pretty bright. It's not my favorite art style, but there are some really good parts to it. So I'm hoping I will love this. However, I told my sister I would let her read these before I return them to the library. So if that's going to happen, I need to read these sooner rather than later. As well, I probably need to read The Promised Neverland, which I got out. I could maybe not read it. I could maybe renew it. I don't think it's got anyone waiting. But honestly, I don't know anything about that, except that it starts with orphans, and I've heard a lot of really good things about it. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll get to that as well. I don't really know what else is happening this week, other than Jace's auction for his property is happening next week. Actually, I don't even know how long I'm going to run this vlog for, because do I try to catch up on my reading plans and fix up my vlog cycle? I don't know, but if we're still talking on Wednesday, which probably we will be because I kind of expect I'm going to take a while to get through this, there's going to be an auction. And if that goes through, then our plans for moving will move up a bit. We still have a lot more steps before we actually move to small town New Zealand, but like maybe we're getting there. Other than that, probably we'll just be trying to like relax and not be stressed about it. I mean, that's what we try to do for life every week. Relax, don't be stressed.
Pick it up from the top, hit restart. So far it's been so hard to live, but lately something in me.
Hello, so we are playing a game of, now that I've closed the door to film, will the neighbor cat want to leave or will he stay? I guess we'll see. But I have lots to update you on. I actually feel like I'm reading a lot of things at the moment, like I'm in the middle of a lot of things, although I'm not sure I'm making a lot of progress on all of them, but I've gotten some amount into all of them. Where should I start? Let's start with the book from my TBR, so Sky Dancer. This one. So what is happening is it's this girl. I actually don't know how old the main character is supposed to be. She has gone with her mother to this small town in New Zealand with the idea that she wants to get her mother away from her abusive boyfriend who's kind of encouraging her mother to keep up her drug habit. Her mother is like an ex-weather girl, but then she had kind of a big drug problem in the middle of her weather thing, and got fired, and then her life's kind of been a disaster since then, and the daughter has always kind of had to look after her, and now she's trying to get rid of this boyfriend. So they've gone to this small town, but now that they're at this small town, for starters, everyone's like gushing over her mother, who's kind of a celebrity, but also kind of flaky. But as well as that, there are these birds. There's kind of a war going on between the seabirds and the land birds, and we're getting from these old women that they're staying with like bits of mythology around why that is. But the seabirds, for some reason, are trying to assassinate this girl. Don't really know why yet, but these old ladies know, and eventually they will tell her. So it's a little bit strange. I really liked the first bit of mythology that we got. I'm not sure how I felt about the second. I do feel sometimes the writing feels, I don't know the best way to describe it, like a little bit clunky, maybe a little bit basic, or it's just like the pacing isn't there and the characters, like it's kind of like this is a continuation of a series, but I've missed the books before because it's kind of like it's assuming I know the characters, but I don't. So I just feel like some of the character development is missing, or I'm meant to assume a lot that I can't assume. Another thing I will say is I thought this was more historical fiction, but I think it's not set like very far in the past because it does mention John Campbell, who is like a news journalist that he's not the main news guy, but he used to be a little while ago. Huh? What's happening? You're meowing. You're sad, are you? You want to come here? What are you doing? Oh, okay. Now we have cat on our lap. And I'm in a new position. One thing I will say about this, there's a part where she's like, oh, I wonder if, no, the cat wants to leave. So there's a part where she's wondering if people will recognize her mother, or she's surprised that they recognize her mother because like she hasn't been a celebrity for like 5 years. And I'm like, wow, is 5 years enough aging to make you seem unrecognizable? I don't think so. Like, am I unrecognizable from my first booktube videos? I don't think so, even with my blue hair. Maybe I had blue hair when I started. No. Somewhere in the middle there, though. Anyway, I guess the summary with this one is I am interested to see how this bird assassin war between the birds kind of comes together. We will see with that one. Also, I have been listening to The Pursuit of William Abbey. It is William Abbey, and I think I'm about 30% of the way through. So basically we started off with this nurse, and then the doctor starts telling her his story about how he witnessed this boy. It was basically a black boy in Africa who was accused of raping this young white girl, even though probably he didn't. And as a result, he was burnt to death, and the doctor just watched it, and then the boy's mother, who was some kind of religious mystic person, has cursed him. So this boy's shadow constantly follows him, and if the shadow catches him, it will then kill the person that he loves the most. So he's always trying to keep ahead of this boy's shadow. However, also, when this boy's shadow gets very close to him, he gains the ability to like get the truth of things from people. So like in the beginning, it'll be just like he can kind of gets parts of their dreams, but closer and closer he can't help but just like say everybody's deepest, darkest secrets. They call him a truth seeker though, so the idea is that he can kind of see the things that matter the most to people. And then he gets recruited by this spy agency that knows about people like him, these truth seekers, and they're using him as a spy. So there's a lot of really interesting themes being explored, like the difference between how people see themselves and how others see them. There's a lot about racism and classism, and I guess like civilization versus mysticism, or like science versus religion. What I think I like about this, so I have said I was tentative about going into a more historical fiction kind of story, but I think what this does, and it's similar to what the first 15 Lives of Harry August did, is it like tells you all the history, and it's still like doing the thing which I didn't like in some of the historical fictions I was reading the other week, where like it's clear the author's done a lot of research and they're like dumping all that information on you. In this one, I can tell that Claire North has done a lot of research, but also she's really only giving you like what's relevant to the context of this character's life. And as well, it's told like he's telling his story in the past, so you're still getting kind of a future person's perspective of the historical events, rather than quite often in the historical fictions I haven't liked, it's just like a more historical view of historical things, and I miss that modern perspective of things. So even though it's more historical fiction than I thought I would like, I am enjoying it. I think it's also because it is really progressing that plot around the strange concept. And there was a part where I think it references The Sudden Disappearance of Hope by Claire North. I haven't read that, but I think it was referenced. So I am excited to continue that one as well. Then I made some progress on graphic novels. Firstly, I read the second volume of this Dark Crystal one. I didn't mind it. I do think the art is very colourful, and there are some parts the light has just started shining in. Thank goodness, actually, because we're going to go out for dinner. Walk to go and get dinner. But like the colours in this are really bright. I just find that sometimes it's quite hard to follow the story, and I think it's the way that it jumps around between the different characters, and I kind of just wish we were focused on the main characters rather than also getting Jen and Kara from the original Dark Crystal story. Like getting them as well is just a little bit too much. And then there's also the bad guys confusing things even more, and it just means the plot is a little bit slow for me. And like there's a big part of miscommunication in here, and I wish the main characters would just talk to each other rather than all the angst that we're getting. That would be better. Anyway, I have volume 3, which I will try and read tonight so that I can give these to my sister maybe tomorrow. Then as well, I started reading The Promised Neverland Volume 1, and this, I got about halfway through, and I don't know what to say because I think this book, like I went into it not really knowing anything about it, and I think that's best because when I got to what it's clearly about, I was so shocked, but also like because I like that thing, I'm now really intrigued in it. But like, so I want to tell you what that thing is so that if you like that thing, you'll read this book, but if you like that thing, you're better just go in and discover it. So anyway, basically at this orphanage, they always have to wear white. They have these ID numbers like tattooed on their neck, and every day they do these tests. And it seems like the ones who do good at the tests get to stay, and then the ones who don't get shipped off into the outside world. They don't know anything about the outside world other than what books tell them about it. And the main characters, there's kind of main 3 who are the best at the test, but they're coming up to the age of 11 where everybody goes out into the outside world. Anyway, that's all you get to know, but I'm excited to continue that one as well. So lots of things that I'm in the middle of that I'm excited to continue. So hopefully I can find some time to continue them.
Chasing one another, getting lost in another summer. Never wanted it to end. Now I'm losing all my friends. I'm reminded of the pain when I'm on the interstate, me and the moon, and we think of you. Remember when we sat out in the football field.
Hello. So I have re-blued my hair. It really needed it, and I'm happy to be back being properly blue again. There is still some purple because of the purple base, but like mostly blue. Anyway, let me update you on my reading. I am past halfway on this now. Have to be honest, I'm not loving it, but I am going to keep going because it's a New Zealand author. I do like the way it's kind of weaving a modern story in with the Maori mythology, but there are a few things that's letting it down. Partly it's just a lot of the things that the characters are doing don't have a lot of foundation. Like they came up with a plan to deal with this impending bird war, and it seemed like a leap, like that there were a lot of things you would consider before you would consider that, and like the main character kind of went from completely not believing to totally believing with very little nudging from the characters who do believe. And also like basically these old ladies told the main character what's going on and she didn't believe them, and they were like, oh, we've done everything in our power, what else could we do? Like all you've done is tell her what's happening. You're gonna give up already? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And as well, like there's kind of a whole hate to love romance thing going on between these two characters, and there's just not enough foundation for why they're not getting along. I think as it goes along, it is building that foundation and it's getting better or more believable, but at the same time that's when they're starting to get along better. So that's a little bit strange as well. Like this is a 2003 book and there are some topics that it's dealing with in a very 2003 kind of way, like there's ableism and like stuff about beauty standards and fat phobia, and there was something else when I was reading it last night, I can't quite remember, but as well like there's domestic abuse and drug use, and just like the way it's dealing with all of those topics is shaky, but like probably was fine in 2003, but things have changed in the last 20 years. As well, like there was a whole section where the birds of the forest were talking about their preparations for war, and that went on for far too long. I didn't need that much detail. So I think it's just got pacing issues, but also like foundational issues, and it's 2003, so it's a little bit problematic, but like I'm going to stick with it for the mythology and the promise of a little bit of time travel, maybe. We will see, I guess, what happens with that. The other thing I've been reading is The Pursuit of William Abbey. So this one, I am liking it. I would say as well this one has some pacing issues where sometimes it does drag a bit. However, there are some bits that I really love. Like I think there's some lines that I've really loved. This is definitely the downside of listening to the audiobook because it's harder to like capture those great lines. But I think some moments are really profound. Also some moments are like hilarious, especially when his shadow gets very close. He just can't help but like spew out all the truths of the people around him, and sometimes it's just utterly unhinged, and I love those parts. And I think the narrator's doing a really good job of those parts. Although the one thing I would like changed about the audiobook is that we get these little interludes where it's the nurse's perspective because he's telling his story to the nurse. And I wish that nurse's perspective had been done by a female narrator instead of just having the same narrator, because I think it makes it harder as an audiobook listener to like differentiate those parts. And I definitely feel like I don't really know still where the story is heading. There's a few things going on, but I feel like this middle of the book hasn't really been doing as much with the concept of like truth seeking as the rest of the book. I am liking the way though that it's dealing with a lot of the themes, so that's promising. As well, I have finished the graphic novels that I wanted to read during this vlog. So firstly, I finished off the Dark Crystal, Power of the Dark Crystal graphic novel series. I've actually already given it to my sister, and I do think actually the last volume was the best, both in terms of like the art. There were some pages that were really beautiful, and I think they really leaned into the really bright colors that they had in some parts in the first two volumes, and it's those bright colored pages that I really liked in terms of art style. As well, I think the story kind of came together a bit better. It was possibly a little bit heavy-handed with the lessons coming together at the end, but as I said, I think if you see the story as being targeted at a younger audience, then that's fine. And like obviously little me, who liked the original Dark Crystal movie, would have loved another movie with this lesson, and I'm pretty sure I would have loved the main characters. Actually, I remembered, I never even really told you what it's about. So basically what happens is it turns out there's this fire nation, not Avatar The Last Bender Fire Nation, but this Fire Nation living within the planet of Thra where the Dark Crystal is, and they've sent a representative to come and ask if they can get a shard of the Dark Crystal to basically save their land because the fire has been burning out. And there's some kind of prophecy along the lines of one world will die and the other will be saved. It did a good job of like working out how that prophecy actually came together. And as well, basically this fire girl ends up teaming up with this Gelfling boy and they discover what's going on and save the day, as you would expect. I really liked it. I think it would have been nice to get it as the movie, but a graphic novel version is probably the next best thing. Then as well, I finished off The Promised Neverland. It definitely reminded me of Death Note in the way that the characters are always trying to logic things out and it's really stepping you through the logic that they're going through. It does mean sometimes it's a bit repetitive. Basically, these smartest kids in the orphanage are trying to figure out what's going on and figure out how to escape this orphanage that they're trapped in. It does at the beginning of every chapter kind of repeat where we're up to. So I'm wondering if this was released kind of in a serial way, in which case it makes sense that it needs to remind people what's happening. But since I was reading it kind of in one big go, it was like, you just told me that, you don't need to remind me. And I kind of expect the ongoing series will be a little bit like Death Note, where there are some volumes which are amazing and have amazing twists and turns, but then there's other volumes that just go on and on a little bit. I also realized, like, I've been trying to get to series 0, so like starting this series, which is a 20 volume series, means I've now got 19 more books to read to get to series 0, but also like they're pretty quick reads, so I don't know. I haven't properly put all the graphic novels that I have onto my series spreadsheet, and I kind of don't want to because I think I've ruined it a little bit, but I probably will, and then I'll cry. Anyway, that is everything I've been reading. Jace's auction is tomorrow, so fingers crossed that will go well, although all the houses that we've been looking to buy in the town that we want to move to have like disappeared. They've been all selling recently. So at the moment there's actually none that we want to buy. So we might still have to wait a while, which is fine. We've still got to sort a bunch of things out. But anyway, maybe next time I talk to you, we'll have an update on that. Maybe. Hello. So the exciting news is that yesterday everything went really well, and so now we're mostly just waiting, and there's lots of other things still to sort out. But anyway, I did want to update you on my reading. I have not read any more of The Pursuit of William Abbey, but hopefully I'll go for a run tomorrow and then I'll be able to get to it. The other thing that I did is I forced myself through the ending of this. To be honest, I had to force myself through it because pretty much the whole last 100 pages was just this battle between the two kinds of birds, the seabirds and the land birds, and like it was all from the perspective of birds. And it was also quite a lot of like, I want to say modern references, but it was a lot of references from 2003 being included in here in quite weird ways. There was also like one line in here that I don't think anyone except someone who lived in New Zealand, and probably not even young New Zealanders, would get. And that was like a line that's,
"You're not in Guatemala now, Dr. Ropata."
anyone of my generation totally knows what that means, but it was like completely not explained. And I guess that's the thing with all references through here. And this is definitely the danger of putting like pop culture, modern day references in your book, because maybe at the time it makes it cool, but later no one knows what it even means. But also just this part with the birds was so heavy on all the military tactics of the battle, and it was so drawn out, and I had to just skim through it because otherwise I was never going to get through it. I was, though, from about halfway through the book, I started imagining this as how it could be adapted into a TV show, and I think it could be an amazing TV show. I don't really know how they do the part with the birds, but I think it could be really cool. So, like, I guess the thing with this is I like the story. I love the way it incorporated Maori mythology and with this modern story. I loved how it fitted in the time travel, and, like, also the birds. I didn't like the parts with the birds, but I loved the concept of it. So I'm glad I read this, but also not a favourite. And I don't really even know who I'd recommend this to. Probably only New Zealanders who don't mind a bit of a difficult read to get through, or like who like lots of battle tactic stuff and like have an interest in Maori mythology. That's probably it. Anyway, I guess otherwise that's my only update for now until I have finished The Pursuit of William Abbey, which hopefully will be tomorrow.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop we like to go. Late night walks with you to take me home. With you I never feel alone.
Hello, so I've just heard my neighbours start up their chainsaw or something in their quest to destroy all the trees on their property for some reason. I don't know why they're doing that, but let's try and wrap this vlog up before they get really into that. So firstly, I did finish off The Pursuit of William Abbey. I don't know if I loved it, but I do think it is a decent story. I do wonder if on a reread I would like it better, because that's kind of what happened to me with The First 15 Lives of Harry August, also by Claire North. And I think it's just because there's so many characters, which one via audiobook is a bit hard to keep track of, so maybe this would have been better as a physical book. But so like there's so many characters and I'm never quite sure of who's important and who's not. And so by the time you get to the end, you know what's going to be done with the concept, that I feel like on a second read it's actually much more satisfying and you know which parts to focus on. But I still did really like a lot of the themes in this book, as well as like just when these guys are like speaking the truth and they can't stop just like spewing out the truth, and like actually some really awful things happen as part of this. Like in the beginning when that boy gets burned, it's described quite graphically, but also other surgical things happen later on in the book that are quite awful. So this book is quite intense, but I liked what it was trying to say. I do think a lot more could still be done with this concept though, but I think for a lot of Claire North's books the concept is more there to support the themes rather than the themes supporting the concept, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I think this is a good book. I think if you liked The First 15 Lives of Harry August, then you might like this, even though it's not quite as good, I don't think. But maybe that's just because I have a preference for time travel. Then also, I did read one other thing, and that is Cucumber Quest. I'm not sure the colours are quite coming across right because I was reading it on my iPad, but honestly, it's just this cute graphic novel. Like, the art is so beautiful. It's about these rabbits. One of them, he really wants to just go to school to learn magic, but then his father forces him to go on this quest to save the world, even though his little sister actually would much prefer to go on the quest, and he just wants to go to school and learn. And there's some parts, like, it just made me laugh so many times. It's so cute. It's so adorable. And then I went to rate it on Goodreads. I found out first it's from 2017. Why have I not heard about it? And also, people I know have rated it less than 5 stars. I feel like personally attacked because I loved it so much. Maybe it was just because I was in the mood for like some really wholesome goodness, and the sense of humor is just like to my taste. I kind of felt like it was like Adventure Time, but just like much cuter. And I am super excited because there's like another 3 volumes I think for me to read, and I kind of feel like September is going to be a much better reading month than August was, hopefully. Anyway, we seem to have gotten through this update without any soaring, so that's good. Do let me know if you have any thoughts about the books that I read in this vlog, or if you've been reading anything exciting lately. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.